Let's bring our friend Ryan Schmelz onto the show with us. He's Fox News Radio's Capitol Hill and White House correspondent. And my new friend, I met him when I was in D.C. with the eighth grade class trip, which is really cool. Ryan, it's good to have you back on the show. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Go Cardinals, Annie.
That's right. Thank you very much. I got to go back this past weekend and see two wins and then one butt kicking. The Nationals laid it out on the Cardinals. We're going to talk about that. So speaking of butt kicking, let's talk about Congress. Let's talk about Capitol Hill. What are you learning Monday now that we see the Congress folks coming back into town with everything that's been going on with the Joe Biden questions that loom large?
Right. So we're still expecting members of Congress to start rolling in over the next couple of hours. But I think the big thing we're starting to see today is kind of a reassurance behind President Biden. You know, he sent out this letter a few hours ago that pretty much states that he is staying in the race. It pushes back on a lot of the criticisms that have been thrown his way since that disastrous debate performance. And we've seen a lot of Democrats start to fall in line and reassure their support of President Biden over the last couple of hours. Now, there still are a couple of them who have come out publicly and said that they are concerned with President Biden. We had reporting that there was initially going to be a Senate meeting this Monday, as in today, and within the next couple of hours, but that meeting got moved to tomorrow to during their normal Democratic policy luncheons. And that meeting is going to discuss some of the concerns that senators have with President Biden's candidacy. And another thing you're starting to see some of these senators start to put out, including John Tester, who's in a swing battleground state in Montana, as well as a couple other ones. They say they want to see President Biden in more situations that are unscripted so that they can prove that President Biden is still capable of doing this job. As in, this is going to be a pivotal week for President Biden in every public appearance he makes to prove to Democrats that he can still carry this job.
It's a really interesting thought coming out from the left. Like, if you can do it, and that's something that we've heard President Biden say multiple times. It's one of his go-to lines, watch me. And he says that he can handle the job. George Stephanopoulos' interview last Friday didn't really assuage a lot of concerns, but he did get through it. He did, answer all the questions, like Jill Biden is really proud of him, of course. We're speaking with Ryan Schmelz with Fox News Radio. He's a Capitol Hill and White House correspondent. As more representatives and senators come back, do you expect them to want to speak on the issue, or is it going to be hard for you to get them to, give you that comment and make a statement on this issue? How does something like that generally work?
Well, we're going to find out. And I think maybe to put this in perspective, normally whenever there is what we call the jailbreak, that's whenever the House or Senate lets out for the day and all the lawmakers come running down the steps so they can go home. Normally, when this happens, you have the certain members who are in more demand than others. And certainly on the House side, Republicans have probably been in more demand this Congress because they're in the majority. Now, everything changed after that debate to the point where every single Democrat who came running down the steps the next day was in demand from the press because we wanted to get comment from them. We wanted to hear what they felt about that debate performance, if they still had confidence in President Biden, and who were going to be the ones who called on President Biden to step aside. And what's fascinating is over the last week, they've been on recess. So the press hasn't really had an opportunity to grill some of these lawmakers about this. And a lot of them have been able to come out on their own terms and either request the president step aside for a different candidate or stand behind the president. So I think this week you're going to see a lot of movement in terms of meetings. You're going to see a lot of movement in terms of members of Congress being pressed on this issue over and over again. But it's still very early, but a lot of things can happen over the next 24, 48 hours.
We're speaking with Fox News Radio's Ryan Schmelz about what is going on Capitol Hill as they figure out the Joe Biden question. It's a big question. It might be the question specifically right now in the news. Is this is it your sense from who you've been able to talk to so far or where this is headed? Is it just about the campaign? Is it just about November? Or is there an honest, broader conversation about his ability to do the job right now?
I think there's a combination of both. I think Republicans certainly are trying to message on that. You have Chip Roy, the congressman from Texas, who is offering an amendment or a resolution that he's going to introduce this week that would require, or it would pretty much send a message to Vice President Harris to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove President Biden from office. What we understand is that he's going to speak with the conference about this likely tomorrow during their weekly policy breakfast. So we can expect some movement on that front. And other sense I'm kind of getting from Republicans is if we were going to talk about who maybe the big winner was from the debate between former President Trump and President Biden, it has to be the swing district Republicans. And the reason why I say that is because these were individuals who are defending, and in some cases, they're defending Biden plus districts. So they've been getting a lot of questions about former President Trump being at the top of their ticket. Now, their opponents are going to be getting a lot of questions about President Biden being at the top of their ticket. So that's probably one of the big things that we've seen is this level of confidence that's been risen from a lot of these Republicans who are defending swing districts or trying to win swing districts because it's put Democrats on the defensive.
Yeah, that is such an interesting and important point for people to be paying attention. Like the representatives who do decide to come out and speak, or the senators who do decide to come out and speak, what party are they representing? And are those districts pro-Biden districts? Are they going to be purple, as you were mentioning? You talked about, with the Chip Roy comment about Kamala Harris and the potential invoking of the 25th Amendment. I mean, that is such that would just be show-stopping to watch that unfold. But aside from that, maybe Joe Biden decides he would maybe step aside for the campaign. A lot of people, as you said, are also having a combination conversation about his ability to do the presidency right now. Is there a lot of conversation about Kamala Harris as the vice president who would become the president in that instance right now, or Kamala Harris as the presumptive fill-in nominee for Joe Biden should he step out?
We've heard a little bit of chatter. There have been members of Congress, both on the Senate side and the House side, who have said that they would support Harris if she were the nominee. Now, those were more direct answers to direct questions, as in, well, if Vice President Harris becomes the nominee, would you support her? And they say, yes, of course. She's going to be if she's the party nominee, I will support her. So it's just more of just a direct answer. I think what was fascinating is that you saw Tim Ryan, who was representing a swing district in Ohio for a very long time, no longer a member of Congress, ran for president against both President Biden and Vice President Harris. He's already come out and made a very clear statement that he thinks Kamala Harris should be the nominee and should take over for President Biden. And he pushed back on some of these narratives that go around, pretty much claiming that if anybody thinks that Kamala Harris would be more of a liability at the top of the ticket compared to President Biden, he says that's nonsensical for people to think that way. So Ryan had a very strong statement there in support of Kamala Harris, and it would be the most feasible option. Obviously, one thing to keep in mind is we are very close to convention time. When Lyndon B. Johnson dropped out of the race and decided not to be the Democrat nominee anymore, we were over 100 days away from the Dem convention. We're now less than 50 days away from the Democratic convention. So to find another candidate and to not just do a simple transition from the vice president to having her at the top of the ticket would be very hard for Democrats to pull off. It's not that it would be impossible, but those are things to consider when you think about somebody else besides Vice President Harris taking over if President Biden were to step aside.
We're speaking with Fox News Radio's Ryan Schmelz and his insight there as a Capitol Hill correspondent for Fox News Radio. One final question for you before we let you go. I am interested in who you are watching potentially to be a leader on, maybe the final word from within the Democrat Party there on Capitol Hill. Who are you looking to definitively say, Joe Biden's the guy, everybody back down, or maybe some individual representative senators that you might see being able to vocally come out and lead for the alternative?
Oh, it's got to be the people who are in leadership. I think Hakeem Jeffries is a name to watch. I think the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, Pramila Jayapal, is somebody to watch. I would also look at, Pete Aguilar, who's the number 3 Democrat, Catherine Clark, the whip. And then, of course, on the Senate side, you have to watch for Dick Durbin, who is the number 2 Senate Democrat, but also the chair of the Judiciary Committee. Pretty much anybody in leadership, those are the ones you're going to want to have to watch for, because if one of them makes a concerning statement surrounding President Biden, that's going to carry a lot of weight. But as long as they stay true and stay loyal to President Biden, it's hard for that domino effect to really take effect here. So I think watching them, those are going to be the big ones to watch.
I appreciate that. And one follow up to that, if I might, just the Democrat Party in the House specifically, they've got a few different wings of the Democrat Party there. Do you see any sort of breaking with the squad versus the rank and file Democrats?
Yeah. It's so far, it seems like it's been a pretty diverse group of members who've come out and asked for President Biden to step aside. You know, you've got Adam Quigley, who's a very prominent member, who's, I believe he chairs the Ukraine caucus. He's been in for a long time, considered to be an establishment guy. He's somebody who has come out and asked President Biden to step aside. You've seen some other members too here and there. And then, you know, Robert Garcia is, I think, one that's been fascinating. He's a congressman from California, the freshman class president, a very progressive member from California, but also somebody who's a Biden campaign surrogate. And he has stayed true and passionately defended President Biden in the days after the debate. So I think it's a pretty diverse group of different wings of the party who've either come out and said they're concerned or reaffirmed their support for President Biden.
Ryan Schmelz, we're grateful for you. Thank you for the time today. What a time to be doing what you're doing and what I'm doing here to be able to cover this. It's very historical, and we're grateful that you were able to share some of that with us today.
It was great to be on, Annie, and this is going to be a fun week, so stay tuned.
Yes, we will. Absolutely. We'll have you back soon. Ryan Schmelz, thank you so much.